Hello and welcome again to Ancient Ways for Modern Days. This is our daily devotional. And so what we do here is we follow the New Testament reading plan at Valley Christian Fellowship. And we take whatever the New Testament reading is for each day of the week. And I just film a short devotion helping us to think a little bit more deeply, and hopefully encouraging us from the passage and challenging us from the passage. Now, my name is Mike Freeman. I am the pastor of Valley Christian Fellowship in Longview, Washington. And today, as we open up the Word of God, we find ourselves in Matthew chapter 7. Now, Jesus, he's continuing to teach in Matthew chapter 7, and he's teaching about just a variety of topics. He begins by talking about judging others while you have hypocrisy in your own life. He talks about asking the Father for what we need, and what he's doing there is he's teaching about the Father's generous heart toward his children. And then Jesus he mentions the golden rule, doing unto others as you want done unto yourself. And then at this point, there begins to be a bit of a contrast that he develops. He talks about the two different gates, the narrow way and then the broad way. He talks about the false prophets who are wolves in sheep's clothing. He talks about false disciples who he says, I never knew you. You did things because you knew about me, but you didn't know me and I never knew you. And then Jesus gives an illustration of building your life on the rock or your house on the rock. And it concludes with some remarks about Jesus' authority. Now, what I want to do for our time together today is I want us to just take a little bit of time and consider some of the contrast we see here. If you back up, you see the contrast is really between a godly and wise life and an evil and foolish life. Some of the contrast we see the contrast between the gates. We have one gate that is narrow and one gate that is wide. The narrow gate, it is hard and difficult along that path. The wide gate, it is easy. The narrow gate has few who find it. And the broad gate, there are many who enter into it. The narrow gate leads to life and the broad gate leads to destruction. Along with that, you have trees. Jesus talks about different trees. He says there's the good tree that bears good fruit, and then there's the bad tree, and it bears bad fruit. And so these contrasts, they build into this idea of the life we live, and really it all hinges on it if we know Jesus and if He knows us. And sometimes we can read this and we can say, well, Am I on the good path? Am I on the narrow path, or am I on the broad path? Am I a good tree bearing good fruit, or am I a bad tree bearing bad fruit? And I think Jesus' illustration here really helps us to think through and kind of reflect on our own life and think through what kind of life we have. Let me read for you his illustration, the life and light of Jesus that's really based upon the Word of God. Matthew 7, 24 through 27 says, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat on the house, but it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it." Well, this is an incredible picture. Jesus draws just a stark contrast. He says, the one who hears my words, he builds his life on the rock. What he's saying here is the one who hears his words, really the one who embraces the life that Jesus calls us to. It's a life of faith. We know through the full teaching of Jesus, it's not a life of being morally superior or trying harder or doing better. It's really a life that is built on Jesus and his death and his resurrection. This is the ancient way for our modern day, right? And so the life that is wise, the life that is godly, the life that bears good fruit, the life that is on the narrow path that enters through the narrow gate, is the life that listens to the words of Jesus and then obeys them. lives according to his words. This is the life that is not perfect, but is striving to live according to the word of God and the gospel we find in Jesus Christ. That's the good life. And then the foolish life is the one who hears these words, who hears the words of Christ and hears his story about his death and resurrection, that hears the life that they're called to live, all of the instruction of the scripture, and then turns their back to it. They don't live according to this life, and says their life is like a house that is built on the sand, and when the storm comes, there's a great fall. There's a great destruction. And so this really calls us to consider our life. How do you interact with the Word of God? I mean, you're listening right now to a video or a podcast that is affirming the words of God. So hopefully you're leaning in and you're saying, God, I have a heart posture that whatever it is you say, I want to hear it. I want to live according to it. But it's worth taking the time to consider. Are there things in God's Word that you're ignoring, that you're turning your back to, that you're closing your eyes toward, that you're plugging your ears? You're saying, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to live this. I don't want to obey this. Or are you growing as that good tree bearing good fruit? Are you growing as that wise person who builds their house on the rock, the Word of God, even the challenging parts, and says, I am going to build my life on God's Word? That's our message today out of Matthew 7. That's the ancient way for our modern day. That's the real life, the real true life. It's built on the Word of God. So as we close, take some time to reflect on your life. Take some time to consider God's Word and the place it has in your life.